So joining us today is Rudra Pandey, partner Shardul Amarchand Mangaldas. Rudra, how are you doing?
Thank you, Aman. Thank you. I'm doing good. How about you?
Doing very well. So this is regarding the press note 3 that got recently issued. Just want to bounce off some questions to you. So according to you, what are the highlights of the press note 3? What changes it actually brings about?
The changes brought by Press Note 3 is having a very a deep impact. Not only investment from China, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan, but also investments from other part of the countries globally.
So what does press note 3 say about the beneficial owner?
Press Note 3, which has been made in effect by the NDI Rules Amendment 2020, which is non-date rules, which has come into effect on 22nd of April 2020, does not actually define beneficial owner. In fact, even the FEMA, which is the Foreign Exchange Management Act, does not define beneficial owner. Now, this is a big concern that we have between the lawyers, including the investor community. In fact, we are debating what principles or what definitions should be applied to this term. Now, in the absence of any such specific definition, and the way the wording of the press note, read with India Amendment Rules has, is it gives a very wide ramification. It includes any and every investment, directly or indirectly, by any foreign investors, wherein in the background, if the Chinese are sitting as an investor, as a shareholder, as a holding company, be whatever the situation may be. So in the absence of any such definition as of now, we need to include all type of investment indirectly by any Chinese investor who are coming in from countries where India share the border with such country.
So what about countries which are not sharing borders with India, but the companies have investments from Chinese? So if any company with Chinese investments is going to invest in India, are they going to fall under the same rule?
Yes. If you talk about, let's take an example that if there is a Singapore company investing in India, and if such Singapore company has investors from China, Japan, US, and then say it is 10% China, 20% Japan, 70% from US, even such company, when it is investing in India, would require government approval. The reason being, in the background or from a shareholding perspective, there is an indirect interest up to 10% in such investment of a Chinese company. So therefore, any investment by a Singapore company in India would necessarily require a government approval.
So what kind of approvals we are talking about here?
A government approval, primarily this is DPIIT, which is the nodal agency for promoting the investments in India. So the approval, the application need to be made to them, where the investment is coming into a particular sector, which anyway requires a government approval. Then in that case, the relevant ministry of that sector, we need to also process the application. But in general, for the press note 3, where we're talking about approval from the government, wherein the investment coming from the countries where the India shares the border with them, or any citizens of such countries who are indirectly investing or are forming part of the beneficial owner, such application will go to DPIIT.
And other than that, is there any requirement of taking approval from, say, Ministry of Home Affairs?
Now, that's a big concern, actually. If you look at the way the amendment has been made, and let me read the section, the rules to you, including the press note. Now, the press note has actually amended paragraph 3.1.1. In fact, they have replaced the old paragraph 3.1.1, and they have added new 3.1.1 with A and B. And the way the amendment has been done, it looks like that they are probably going to be bucketed with Pakistan and Bangladesh. What actually eventually will lead to, and that's the concern that as lawyers we have, and we need more clarity from the government of India, in particular from DPIIT, whether such investment will necessarily require the security clearance. That basically means that such application, in addition to DPIIT, need to also go to MHA, Ministry of Home Affairs. for the security clearance.
So what is the kind of timelines you're looking at for that kind of clearance to come in for any investor?
If you look at the SOP, the standard operating procedure prescribed by DPIIT for the government approval for any such FDI investment, they're talking about, in general, 4 weeks timeline plus a 6 weeks timeline where the approval from the government of India through Ministry of Home Affairs is required. But it does not stop there. It says that if the Ministry of Home Affairs needs more time, so basically we're talking that overall timeline can exceed 10 weeks. Now, if you look at historically, what is the past experience or the precedent is, generally speaking, this goes on up till 6 months, some cases 9 months. So it's very case to case, basis. There is no thumb rule. On a thumb rule basis, what the law prescribes as of now, 10 weeks. That is together with MHA approval. But in practical terms, how long it will take, only the time will tell us. Let me also tell you, basis some of informal discussion with some of the government officials, what we understand that the idea is to fast track the entire application process. And while they are still evaluating whether security clearance of MHA is required, and nobody actually have thought about it. And let me also tell you that in a recent discussion with the minister, the relevant minister, in fact, yesterday, he said that, yes, the circular, the press note 3, and also the NDI amendment rule require a lot of clarifications. They also understand that there has to be a threshold for the beneficial owner. There has to be a clarity whether what will happen to the greenfield investment, what will happen to the investment in the subsidiary, what will happen to the deals which have already been signed, or the tranches have already been started coming in. Only few tranches are remaining. So there are issues around the press note 3 and the NDI amendment rule where we need clarity. In fact, let me also add that what should be the threshold for beneficial owner is also a debatable point. Whether the DPIIT would like to consider the threshold prescribed under PMLA, Prevention of Money Laundering Act, or they would like to apply the principles laid down in the KYC norms of RBI, which prescribes a 25% threshold as compared to PMLA, which prescribes a 51%, which is the controlling element that they prescribe. Or the government would like to apply the threshold or the principles under the Companies Act, which is a different threshold. So as of now, I mean, this is slightly vague, and the whole investor community, including the lawyers or the law firm, have issues, and they are receiving queries from all the investor community from across the globe. In fact, let me also tell you one very particular case. There's a deal happening wherein wherein a Chinese company is going to invest in US. Now that US company has already an existing investment in India. So primarily, any indirect acquisition by the Chinese company of an US company, which lead to an indirect acquisition of Indian company, would necessarily require a government approval. So there are challenges around. I think if you look at the opening paragraph of the press note, it says that the government want to curb the opportunistic takeover and the acquisitions. But if you look at the content of the press note or the NDI amendment rule, it does not say so. So therefore, as such, this has a far-reaching impact, and therefore, we need to wait for the government to clarify certain points, and we are hoping that in the next few days we'll have the clarity. There are appropriate representations have been made to the government through the chambers, industry chambers like FICCI CII, or directly to the ministry, DPIIT, and the Ministry of Finance.
That was Rudra Pandey, partner Shardul Amarchand Mangaldas. Thank you so much for watching Lawwiser.
Thank you, Aman Abbas, for having me.